Go. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and get started, everybody. If you guys are ready, and it's 11:01 right now. So here's the thing. Today's session. First of all, my name is. If you're new, my name is Michael Pedone. I'm the founder of SalesBuzz.com, and what I want to do, what I want to talk about is when it comes to prospecting, you're making outbound calls, right? Is how to get your prospects' phone numbers without paying a dime for it. So the first thing that we have to talk about is, and use your chat box if you agree or disagree with this, but there seems to be lots of evidence that email sequences have become stale and they're no longer as effective as they were, say, 5, 10 years ago. How many of you are seeing that? And use your chat box, right? So I can see it, right? So, and if you haven't, just let me know that. That's great. But most people that I see the email sequences, 5, 10 years ago, it was like you could have an email sequence, you can send it out. All of a sudden, you're getting all this. You're sending lots of appointments. You think you're a rock star SDR. Everything's doing great. And like anything in sales, it gets overused, overplayed, and it's falling on deaf ears now, right? So with the email sequences is not producing as much, people are struggling. So that what are they doing? Well, if the email sequences are struggling, the sales reps are starting to pick up the phone again, right? They're starting to make a lot more outbound sales calls to develop new business. The problem is, first of all, how many of you are doing this? Right? How many of you notice that maybe your outbound dials have increased, say, over the last 6 months compared to a year or two ago, right? So the problem is that a lot of prospects work remote now. Ever since the pandemic happened, and everybody was forced to stay home, and then after about 90 days of that, businesses realized that they can make this work, and a lot of people working remotely. There's a good amount. I don't know what the exact number is, but I think we could all agree there's a fair amount of people that still work from home or have some kind of hybrid scenario, right? And so they're not answering their landlines that were originally assigned to them. Agreed? Is this a problem that you guys are running into? Right. They have that gap between their normal office line and then where they're getting them now, right? All right. So with that being said, there are tools out there, like there's software tools like uplead.com, there's Seamless AI, there's Zoom Info, right? There's a lot of places that you can pay to get phone numbers, which, and listen, those things are never going to be 100%, but those are some options. Those are some solid options that you could and probably should use for certain areas to go ahead and get contact information and get some numbers on there. And that'll help out, right? But it can be expensive. I think Zoom, I spoke to a client yesterday. They paid for Zoom. It was like 25, 30 grand a year. And he had to commit to 2 years, right? And that's kind of insane. Now, Uplead and Seamless are a lot more affordable, especially for small businesses. He was actually a solopreneur, but he still spent the money. It was worth it to him, but I digress. With that being said, it can be very expensive. It could be a barrier there, right? So what I'm going to do in this very brief webinar, we're not going to need a lot of time to go over this. I'm going to get right to the point on how to solve this. It's a tried and true strategy. I've used this strategy. If some of you know a little bit about me, you know that back in 2002, I started a marketing company. And then within that was right during the dot-com bubble, if you guys remember that, right? And with that being said, it was really tough to start a business then. And I used the same strategy when I started a company then, even though things were tough, the economy stuff, et cetera, to really help build that company. Within 5 years, I sold it for a 7-figure deal. And then when I took some time off and decided to start Sales Buzz and give back and teach what I've learned as a straight commission sales rep, I use the same strategy to get Sales Buzz off the ground, and I'm still using it to today. All right. So, and Ann, I see your comment, right, where the switchboard won't pass you on to people if you don't know their specific name. You know what? I'll make sure at the end of this we'll have time. I'll come back and I'll help you with that. Okay. So, but for right now, let's talk about this. We're going to talk about how to get their, the prospects' phone numbers. Okay. So what I'm about to show you is an ironclad way to get phone numbers from your targeted audience while also turning your cold database, your cold leads into hot prospects without paying for these leads. Okay. How many of you have a bunch of leads already in your database that you've contacted in the past, and it just, for whatever reason, they may have been a good fit and everything, but maybe timing wasn't right, and now they're right. All of us should, right? Okay. So not only are you going to be able to use this tool because a lot of you, the reason why I started this webinar, a lot of you have clientele that those numbers are no longer valid. They're not answering them because it's going to a landline. Some of you have email addresses and no phone numbers, et cetera, right? So, and then some of you have like just old leads that are sitting there that you want to resurrect. So what I'm going to do is just be very simple. It's something that whether you're, especially if you're a solopreneur, you can easily do. If you're a small sales team with a smaller company, say maybe under 100, 150, maybe under 200 employees, you can still easily do it. And even if you're with a large organization, you might have some more red tape to get the marketing team involved to do what I'm about to show you, but it can be done very quickly and easily and a fast turnaround. All right. And so we're going to talk about the tried and true webinars. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create a webinar, and you're going to start with this. You're going to start with a pain pulsing headline. This is how you're going to get phone numbers in droves. Watch this. Okay. Just hang with me here for a second. You're going to start with create a webinar with a headline, a problem that is very relevant to your target audience right now. You guys with me? Okay. So, and by the way, the screen is still changing with you, right? You guys still see the screen moving? Right? Somebody said it wasn't moving for them, so I just want to double check. We good there? Yep, it's perfect. All right, this must be froze on their end. Cool. All right. So, let's come up with a headline. I don't know, how to get prospects' phone numbers without paying for it. How about that? Right? That's a pain problem that my audience is having that I know how to solve, and I can show them how to do it for free. Right? And I'm going to do that for you. What are some of the headlines that you could come up with for what are some of the biggest problems? Put them in the chat box for me to see, and maybe I can come up with a quick headline for you. What are some of the biggest problems and challenges your target audience is dealing with right now that would make them, if they knew about it, they would be willing to sign up for a webinar for you? Again, and if you can't, if you don't like to think on your feet or whatever, that's high energy costs. Energy costs, if you're in that target audience, right? Staff turnover, another huge one. Cash flow, right? Okay, solve the great resignation now. So you guys are on the right track here. You guys are starting to see some really good pain points that are relevant now. What you could do is, I'm sure whether it's yourself, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but if it's you or somebody within the company that is an expert on, take that one specific thing, and then, or if it's a bigger problem, mention the bigger problem, and then take one specific step that they could do that can help solve that problem. And now you're going to put it into a webinar. So you start with the headline. It has to be attention grabbing. You want to know when you're going to build the webinar out. And by the way, guys, if we go back, 20 years ago, when 25, maybe even 30 years ago, when I first got into sales as a straight commission sales rep, there was no way for me to generate my own leads. Okay, hold on a second. Excuse me, I'm gonna have to edit that sneeze out. Okay, you got some allergies going up here in Connecticut. I apologize about that. Okay, so going back to what I was gonna say is there was no way for me to generate my own. Thank you. For me to generate my own leads. Right? I mean, I was working at an organization. I was relying on their marketing and their marketing dollars. The internet's changed this stuff, and you have things like you can create a PowerPoint. It's probably on your computer anyway, and you could use things where you can do it yourself, or you could have somebody in the company that knows to do it, or have your kid do it. They're probably more proficient than a lot of us anyway, and whip something up. But it's the formula to create it. It doesn't cost anything to create one. But you have to know the formula to create one that's going to attract your audience and get them to show up. And so you start with the headline that's going to agitate that pain, scratch that itch. And then in the webinar, you state the problem. So you bring up the pain point and you state the problem of what it is. In our case, it's a legitimate scenario where with COVID and people working from home, those numbers that were in your database, they might be active. They're going to a direct line, but they're not answering anymore because they're working remotely and they have a new VoIP system that's installed on their computer, right? Or you got a lead from a company, but you don't know that person's direct extension, and you're getting shut down. Or maybe, like somebody mentioned earlier, which I will address at the end of this, maybe you're calling into a company, you don't have a name. That's a little bit of a different scenario, but I'll show you how to solve that. But when you're trying to reach out to them, these are problems we're facing. So you start with a headline, you state the problem, and now you quickly show them how to solve the problem, which I'm going to do here with these webinars, right? I'm going to show you this is literally how you solve the problem. Start with a pain point headline. You're going to state the problem. Doesn't need to be long, drawn out. It can take 60 seconds to explain the problem. Ask a couple of questions to make sure it's resonating with that audience, and then show them how to solve it. And these are the little steps that this is a real example that you could follow here. It doesn't have to be some long, drawn out. Matter of fact, the shorter the webinar, the faster you can solve a problem for your target audience, the better it's going to be for them, the more they're going to want to engage with you. And the formula for the social lead generation type thing is know me, right? Know me, like me, trust me, pay me. You got to get them to know you. You got to get them to like you. How are they going to get to like you? By your offering some free stuff that then they take that information, they go try it, and they see that it works, right? Know you, like you. Now they trust you. And then if the problem gets bigger to where they need some expertise, that's when they're going to reach out to you. Or when you contact them, you're going to be more in a better position, and you're going to have a clear-cut advantage to getting that call taken. Does this make sense to everybody? You guys with me on that? All right. All right. So again, start with a pain pulsing headline, state the problem, show them how to solve the problem, resist the temptation to pitch, right? You don't want to see, here's where a lot of people go wrong, is they go ahead and they feel like they have to present their solution by doing their pitch when they're in there. Forget about that. Give something away for free that's going to help them. Help them solve this problem, and the right amount of people will come back to you. Or when you decide to reach out to them, they're going to be more willing to take your call and have a conversation with you. And then you can find out if there's an opportunity there for them to help them even further. We should always be thinking of how do we help somebody. Even when I do straight up cold calling, my first thing is when I get a lead list and if they pre-qualified to be on my lead list, a suspect list or a prospect list, whatever you want to call it, right? They match certain ICP, ideal customer profiles. They have certain characteristics that make them qualify to be on that list for me to reach out to. And then when I start to pick up the phone, the first thing I say to myself is, let me just call, see if I can help them solve a problem. And I already know the top 3 problems that I'm best at solving, and those problems that they're going to have in order for them to be interested, right? So that's why I have no fear. I know exactly what I'm going to say. I know what the step in the formula is, and I can do it that way, but it all starts from a place of help. Same thing with the webinars, right? You want to resist the temptation to pitch your product or service. Just don't even mention it. Pain pulsing headline, state the problem, show them how to solve the problem, don't pitch your solution. Okay, so you get this all mapped out, right? Next, you want to do your sign up form. Make sure, this is how you're going to get the phone numbers, okay? Make sure, you see it right here, the field for phone number, make sure it's required. And if you want, I know somebody, I've been traveling all week, but I did see an email, somebody asked me if I was going to talk about phone numbers. Well, one of the things you could do with the forms, do you guys see it where it says mobile form number on the slide, right? There's just a little screenshot that I put in there. You can make your form. You guys with me? Again, just want to make sure I didn't lose anybody. All right, perfect. So you can have you or your developer or whatever, say mobile phone number. Now, they can put whatever number in there they want. They can put 888-888-8888, right, if they want to. Okay, but you're going to get a few of those, but the majority will just put their most recent number, whether you say mobile phone number or not, right? And then you could have some type of qualifying question there if you want. But this is a great way. Just make them required. And if somebody says, I don't think that'll work, guys, I was worried because we only could do 500 people. And we had, last time I checked, right now, the good news is, that's about industry standard. You always get about 33% of the people that sign up and join the live webinar. We're at 181 right now, right? But with the signups, last time I checked in, we were over like 450. So this stuff works, and everybody put in their phone number to get in here. So it was a real thing where, hey, I have a problem. I'm going to show you how to solve it, and this is something you guys can do today. You guys can do something like this today. And if you're not comfortable in creating the content or whatever, then find somebody, get a guest speaker within the organization that can speak on that one problem. And all you have to do is, hey guys, I understand this is the type of problem you guys have. Here's what we do to help solve it. Here's how you can solve it. Here's some information on how to solve it. And then let them go do it. And that's that. Now you have a clean lead list like that. Make sense? And use that sign up form. With that being said, the next thing you want to do, okay, now that you have the form ready, you have the content ready, you have the link ready to send out, email your database. You want to email your database, and not only to the cold leads, but to everybody that you have an email address, and even your clients. I would send this to clients as well. That's out there. It's already bought from you. One, it's good to give them something for free to keep them engaged as far as that goes. And sometimes it'll be good because you'll get some upsells out of it as well. Like, oh, hey, you know what? I'm glad you brought this up. That was an issue we're having, and we need some solutions on that. They already trust you because they already bought from you in the past, right? So you can email to your clients, email to existing prospects, email to your cold database, and then also you can post it on social media. Go to LinkedIn. Find other, I'm assuming you're part of groups or you have followers that are looking for you to advise in that certain area. You post it out there, you drive traffic, you drive signups. Now you're getting new inbound leads with that as well that are going to know you for the first time. Okay, and you can use hashtags on LinkedIn, things of that nature, to try to get it to bubble up. All right, next, record your webinar as you're doing, so make sure you record it, because this is going to be a lead magnet for you in the future. One of the things I did, I told you in my previous company, I used webinars to help build and grow that company, and then I sold it for a 7-figure deal. Well, when I wanted to do Sales Buzz to get that off the ground, one of the first things I did was I went ahead and promoted. I did the same thing we're talking about here, but the title was Voicemail Strategies, how to get more prospects to call you back today. And it was a 20-minute webinar. I posted it on, I didn't have I just started the company. I didn't have a database, no signups or anything. So I created that webinar. I joined several groups. This was back in the day when LinkedIn actually had groups and conversations that you can share stuff with and do things like webinars and things of that nature. And I posted on there. Next thing I know, I got 500, then it was a 600, then it was 700. I almost had 1,000 people sign up within 1 month of just me promoting that. And then, so that's why I got my database off the ground. And then I just had it on my website, the link to the recording, a little section there for the free webinar. And it just constantly, every day, people come to the site, new people would sign up to watch that webinar, and it would capture that lead and put it into the funnel. It's a great way. The key is you got to have a problem that's going to be relevant to them, and you have to give the information away that'll help them solve it. Make it simple, make it easy, something that they can do and get benefit out of right away. And it's going to pay huge dividends. All right. So now let's say you do that, you get the big sign up, you do the live webinar, you did record it, but you got the live webinar. Now it's done. So you take that whole list and now hand it to the marketing people, or they'll handle it from there if you have them. If you don't have a marketing person, your smaller company, what have you, then you just take that list and you merge it, you upload it to your CRM or your call list, and you update that field, or you create another field. Maybe you want to keep the original phone number that you had, even though it's not working well for you right now. But then maybe you create another field, webinar phone number, right? If you want that, and then you map it to that and you upload it to that. Now you have your lead list, and now you can start your outbound to them. Does this make sense? Very simple and easy. All right. With that being said, I'm more than happy to take some questions. While you guys marinate on this, before I get some of your questions, I'm going to try to scroll. I think somebody mentioned earlier, like the switchboard. I mean, you mean the gatekeeper, right? You call them, they're not going to pass your name on if you don't know the specific name, right? Or for their marketing manager, they're not going to pass you on. Okay, so here's the thing. That's a little bit of a different scenario. So you could use the webinar as an opening value statement, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But here's the thing. You're supposed to be speaking to a marketing manager, because you just gave me the title. Is that correct for the person that mentioned that? Right. So if it's a marketing manager, so one of the things you should just be doing is this: before you ever call somebody, I don't want to call somebody and say, unless I've tried all other options, okay? But I don't ever want to call and say, who's in charge of XYZ? Can you help me out, point me in that right direction? Because that's going to scream as a cold call. They're not expecting your call right out of the gate, right? So with that being said, you as a sales rep, even if you're brand new on day one of a brand new company and you have to make some outbound calls, you as a salesperson should know the top 2 to 3 titles of the people who are almost always involved in the conversation to make a decision on what it is that your company offers. Now, notice I didn't say that they're the decision maker, because we won't know if they're the true decision maker until you have a conversation. But you should know the title of the people who are almost always involved. So if you go back, if you're brand new at a company and you ask the top sales rep there, hey, I have the last 10 deals that you've closed, can you list out all of the titles of the people who were involved in and had at least a vote in the decision-making process? And they'll do that list, and what you'll see is you'll start to see the same 2 to 3 titles over and over again, right? Okay, so if you're not sure who you should be asking for, that's one way to get a crystal clear view of the type of title that you should be contacting. With that being said, just now, if you don't have that you have the title but not their name, just go to LinkedIn. Just go to LinkedIn and pull that company up, and then you'll see the name, and you use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and you'll be able to see who that person is. And now you have that information right then and there. Make sense? Very easy to do. And by the way, on that, you do. I mean, we're going to be getting off subject here a little bit, and I think I have some other questions I want to get to. But with that being said, you never want to do that research during calling hours, right? So at 9 o'clock, it's time to rock. You don't want to be researching and prospecting. That stuff should be done before 9 a.m. or at the end of the workday, and then have that list ready to go. And this is where tools like UpLead and ZoomInfo and Seamless, right, will be a benefit to you. Like, hey, yes, you have some money, you don't mind investing in it, and now you can just pull the lead list from there, right, and get that information. You could do that as well. And a lot of times they're saying that they have phone numbers and direct numbers and that. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Like I said, I've heard some good things recently. It's never going to be 100% accurate, but that's one way you could do it, and then you could populate the information on that. But with that being said, webinars, what I have found, has been the best way to go ahead and get that information. The key is you have to provide data that's going to help them solve a problem, so that when they get the next one, another webinar in a month or so from now, they're going to want to join or share it. Or when you do your outreach and you do call them and they see the caller ID popping up on their new number they put, they're going to take your call. Okay. All right. Hopefully that helps, right? Let me try to get to some questions here real quick before we end. All right. So one question is, can you expand on the difference between writing the pain posting headline and your subject version stating the problem? Right. So what I'm referring to is when you do the webinar, like, let me go back here. Let me just give you a real world example. Okay. To the slide deck. So we have the pulsating pain headline, right? How to get your prospect's phone without paying for it. But then we start talking about the root cause of the problem. We have to get problem recognition. We have to agree that something's a problem. By the way, you need to do this on the sales call as well, right? You need to establish and agree that there's a problem. What is the cause of the problem? Notice there's a couple times I wanted to check in with you guys, like, hey, email sequences aren't working like as effective as they were. So did you guys notice that? Are you seeing the same thing? A lot of you said, yeah, absolutely. Okay. And, a lot of you, to combat that, you're picking up the phone again, but you're running into where the numbers aren't as valid. Is that correct? You're like, yes. I mean, the chat box is popping up. So that's the kind of scenario. Does that make sense, Eric? The difference now? So you have a headline to capture their interest, to get them to sign up. But when it's time to do the webinar, you want to start by stating what the problem is and breaking 2 or 3 things down so that we all agree, yep, this is a problem. Now, how do we solve it? And then you get to the solution. Okay, so good. I'm glad that helped. Let's see here if I can get the scroll thing here. Somebody else asked, I'm reaching out to heads of tax and VP finance CFOs, and these folks, you won't be forwarded to the switchboard, right? Okay, great. Few and far between corporations. I have people, but numbers are becoming scant. So my question is, in the webinars, the only way to do this, which by the way, I told, okay, yeah. So yeah, there's lots of other options. I'm sharing with you a solution that helped me take one company in the middle of a .com bubble, whenever, and some of you might be too young to remember that, right? But where the companies were failing everywhere, and on $100, my last $100 of my name, I started a company in the middle of that crash, and then within 5 years, I built it. Within 5 years, I was able to sell it for a 7-figure cash deal, right? So then I took some time off after that and started Sales Buzz. I wanted to share my sales techniques that I've learned as a straight commission sales rep, and started with a webinar, and here we are. I mean, that was back in 2008, 2009, right? And I've been using webinars to do that, and to grow lead lists and So I don't have to pay a magazine company big money or an online venture big money, to drive those leads. Okay. I see a couple of you raise your hand. I'm going to try to get to everybody before we run out of time here. So just bear with me. So hopefully that answers. There's multiple solutions. And by the way, I've used Seamless before in the past. I use UpLead, right? So there's a couple other ones out there. So at different times, depending on your situation, my advice is you should have multiple lead streams coming in, whether it's Google Ads, somebody posting on LinkedIn, the webinars to drive them to their some data sources that you might have to pull from, right? Podcasting where you're a guest speaker, or if you have one on your own, right? You should have multiple scenarios there. Okay. Couple of questions. How many webinars do you suggest a month? I would say one a month would be fine. That's what we like to try to do. Another one, where does the captured page come from? Okay. Okay. You're going to create a landing page. So you create a landing page. Normally we do a custom one off the website. This month I decided I'm just going to do one right from Zoom info. So I was able to create it in Zoom, and then I had the link and I was able to pass it out there. Okay. And Zoom is fairly cheap. I used to use WebEx a lot. I actually prefer WebEx. I think it's a little cleaner and easier to use, but the whole world seems to be moving to Zoom. That's what we've been using. All right, here's another question. Are there other more affordable web sources similar to UpLead and Seamless AI? I think UpLead and Seamless AI is going to be about the least expensive. I think you can do it for like $99 a month on there. You don't. And here's the other thing too. What I thought was interesting. I mentioned you had a client yesterday that is a solopreneur, sells big ticket items, $250,000 type stuff. And he bought the database. They made him do a 2-year contract, and it was like 50,000 contacts. I'm like, dude, you're a solopreneur. I mean, if you don't have an email marketing drip campaign in place, and I don't mean a sequence, I mean, like, how many of you guys get our Tuesday newsletters, right? I think now they're Tuesday and Thursday. But with that being said, right, where it's just offering free information, like, and then, it has a call to action if they want to come to schedule a call with you. If you're not doing that, why did you buy so many leads? I mean, how are you ever going to go through all of them, right? So you have to, just because the reason why I'm bringing this up to the person that asked me about anything more affordable is, well, one, webinars are free, right? You got everything, your time and effort to put into it. But two, you don't have to buy a ton of leads right up front. You can start small and roll through it that way. Okay. So here's another great question. Somebody says, are you concerned with your competitors will copy your solutions or your individual processes? Yes, it's always an issue. Okay. And the thing is this, you just have to go, you know what? Let them, you got to get out there and I agree. Zoom is way expensive, but back to the expression. Yeah. I mean, sure. I'm worried. You can't, in business from an entrepreneurial standpoint, that's like a valid concern. You have to push it away and you just have to go, you just have to be out there. And you put your information first, and you use it to help, and you use it to generate leads. But then you have to make sure you have a marketing strategy on the back end once you have all these leads to get out there and to go ahead and take advantage of that and drip to them, and then make some calls and make sure you know how to pick up the phone, so you know what to say. All right, to make it worthwhile. But listen, let your competitors chase you. I've learned a long time ago. I don't care what they do. Right. I know as long as you believe in yourself and you can help people, then I would just roll it that way. By the way, one of the reasons why I was able to come up with this winning formula here that's proven to be successful over and over and over again is simply this, is I started to join some of my competitors. When I first got sales posts off the ground, I was like, well, let me see some of my competitors out there. Let me see what they're doing. I signed up for their webinars and I've never made it through one. Why? Because they spend the first 5 to 10 minutes boasting and pitching their services and saying how great they are and all the things that they can do. And they give you very little data to be beneficial. It was strictly a lead grab for them. The problem is when they do it that way, they lose credibility. I don't want to take their calls, whatever. And so when I learned that, listen, I had a vested interest in seeing what they would say and what they were offering, but I just couldn't stomach sitting through 5-10 minutes of them, doing a sales pitch on the front end. And I said, okay, so I'm never going to do that. I want to get rid of that. So that's how I came up with this. And that's why I prefer to keep the webinars between 15 and 30 minutes, which, by the way, we are at the 30-minute mark. And I know a lot of you guys got to get back on the phone. All right. Philip, I see your comment. Thank you. All right. One last question. Ann's asking, other than social media and your own emails, how else do you promote the webinars online? Well, sure. You could always use like you can do paid search. You could find groups that are out there that could do it. Like maybe you could also contact some podcasters that are in your industry that maybe do stuff like that, and then you could just if you want, ask them to include it on there, or better yet, say, hey, listen, if you include this on there, we can bring our subject matter in if it's not you. Yeah, and do like a free podcast where you could ask us questions. Podcasters are always looking to be interviewing people. If you need to spend a little money to promote it, you could do it that way as well through podcasting and social media and Google and things of that nature. But I mean, emailing your database, especially the older database, to get them to sign up is a great way. It's called Wake the Dead campaign. Any marketer will tell you that, right? Okay. With that being said, you can send it up there. You can wake some people up there. You'll have enough leads. Like I said, there's too many here. Me personally, I'm not going to be able to follow up with all 400 right away. So I'm going to have to use the email marketing to do so on that, right? You'll have enough to do. And even if you only get 20 people, that's 20 leads for you right there. You start to grow on, you learn, and you get better and better and better at it. But always have the intention to help. Give something away for free that'll benefit them, make them want to come back for more, make them get to trust you, because you want them to trust you if you can help them solve a problem, right? Okay, so you want to use stuff like this, get them to know you. You can update the database now with their latest email and their latest phone number, and now you have direct numbers to call. I hope this was helpful, guys, and I'm sure we'll see you next month with a new topic. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this. Take care. We'll see you. Excellent. Good job. All right, thank you.